the History Museum of Armenia. Welcome back everyone to Yerevan, Armenia, and today we are back out here in Yerevan on beautiful Republic Square, the heart of Yerevan, where we filmed our very first video from here in Yerevan. And in that video we mentioned that right here on the square there is this beautiful museum, this big museum, which is both the National Gallery and the History Museum of Armenia. And I said in that video that I was very interested to visit the History Museum of Armenia because Armenia, of course, has a very long and very interesting history. And today is the day that we're going to do that. So come along. Thanks for clicking on the video. If you want to help out the channel and help it grow, I really would appreciate it. Click on the like button down there, the subscribe button, and the little bell next to it to be notified for when new videos drop. It really helps the channel grow because it's going to help the YouTube algorithm recognize this content and spread it to other YouTube viewers. If you'd like to support the channel monetarily, I would appreciate that as well. You can leave a super thanks by clicking this thanks button here and give a small donation to the channel. I appreciate your support. So back to the video, enjoy. So the History Museum of Armenia. Now this History Museum here I think goes from all the way back in like the Stone Age, which is really like anthropology era, all the way up through like Copper Age, Bronze Age, Iron Age, and all the way up into like more or less modern Armenia. I think it actually does not go past like the 19th century, so like the 1800s, but the history of Armenia is so long that they would need, I guess, a whole nother museum to get past the 1800s. But still, it's going to be very, very interesting. Out here on the front, there's all these like posters, like banners showing off all the interesting stuff that's going to be in there. I don't know exactly how much it's going to cost to get in. I'm sure it's not going to be that much. And on a day like today, it's very, very hot here in Yerevan. It has been the whole time we've been here. It's been very, very hot. So it's actually going to be quite nice to go inside there and cool off a little bit in the air conditioning. So let's do it. First to say, the History Museum of Armenia here, the collection is huge, absolutely huge. And it dates all the way back to like the Stone Age. That's where the collection here starts. And the Stone Age collection that they have here is relatively small compared to some of the other collections, but still very, very interesting. I have a map here showing the different sites, the archaeological sites from the Paleolithic Armenia, and some stone tools here, which of course you see in different museums that cover the Stone Age civilizations. But interestingly, I like here they had diagrams, pictures showing how the tools were used, because these different hand axes that you would see if you just see them in a case like this, it's hard to know exactly how they were used, but each one specifically designed to be used for like a different purpose, which is really, really interesting to me. And they did have extensive information here, and this is throughout the entire museum, extensive information both in Armenian and also in English, which was very nice, as my Armenian is terrible and I can't really read it. These artist depictions also of the Stone Age people was very nice in this section to sort of humanize and sort of bring together all the artifacts that you were looking at into a cohesive picture of how they would have been used. This guy here wearing shoes, as you can see, and they actually had preserved leather shoes here, which is super, super interesting to me because, of course, stone is, you know, relatively easy to preserve and will be preserved, but preserving leather, something that that could rot, is very, very cool that they have preserved these shoes. And these are from the like Copper Age, 3600, 3500 BC. So they've been preserved for, you know, over 5,000 years. More stone tools here also in this section, but also tools made of bone, which I think is always important to remember how useful and widely used bone was in the era to make different tools. And of course, ceramics here, clay ceramics from the time, very early clay ceramics, and pictures here of the sites themselves so you can see exactly what it looked like when the sites were being excavated. Now, outside in the hallway, outside of this area, there was this huge, like a mammoth tusk or an ancestral elephant tusk, which it was really well preserved. I thought it was very, very cool. This brought us into the next section, which is the Bronze Age section. Now, this section you can see from here is much bigger. It's a very large section, and rightfully so, because they have a huge collection of different artifacts here. Bronze Age tools, spearheads, axe heads, different weapons and things like that. Also, a little video here which I really enjoyed, showing sort of the process of the creation of these tools, how the metals were mined and smelted and shaped. Not just tools and weapons though, also decorative pieces and jewelry that I thought was very, very cool to see because of how intricate and what skill it would have taken to make it. And the use of metal like bronze, of course, makes a technological explosion that allows for the creation of other things, specifically like carts like this, using bronze to make the carts, the cages on the carts, and also specifically the bridles that you would use to have a pack animal be able to drag this cart. These bridles here from the 12th to 9th century BC, so many thousands of years ago. And more pictures here of the archaeological sites where these carts were found, and even a little video here of the archaeologists excavating the site. More ceramics, which of course have been present all the way back in the Stone Age, but the craftsmanship and almost the technology of the ceramics becomes more and more advanced through the ages, as does the use of metal for non-utilitarian reasons, not just tools, but jewelry, and also like figurines and decorative pieces, but also, of course, the advancement of weapons. And having weapons made of bronze is a huge technological advancement over weapons made of stone. That brought us into the Iron Age. The early Iron Age here with iron vessels, also iron weapons, and of course, more decorative iron jewelry. What was really interesting here was this almost like a large relief that told an entire story on these pieces of very thin pressed iron. And you can see here the entire story depicted at the top in the drawing and the pieces underneath that they've actually found and excavated. Very interesting. A very, very large collection of iron bridles, weapons, arrowheads, jewelry. These arrowheads here really interesting because they had the molds as well, as you can see here. They would use to pour the molten metal into and be able to make the arrowheads from the molds. And some of the gold jewelry here that they had made back in this era, thousands of years ago, truly, truly spectacular. Now these iron helmets, very, very interesting to me. Of course, an iron helmet and an iron shield, like the one next to the helmet here, would have been extremely heavy to wear. Not necessarily super useful as far as mobility in battle, but definitely for protection. I can only imagine having to lug around this gigantic iron buckler, this shield, and try and use it in battle. And a lot of these artifacts that were in this section found at a truly spectacular archaeological dig site, Taishabaini Fortress. And you can see the plan of the fortress here laid out with the different rooms designated by different numbers, different areas of it. Also a photo here, a very large photograph of the site and a model here to show you in 3D what the dig site looked like. And one of the most interesting things found in this site were these cuneiform tablets. A large collection of tablets where you can see the writing using the cuneiform script, one of the earliest alphabets, one of the earliest written alphabets. Here they had preserved a wall painting from
the citadel of the fortress itself. Very, very cool and very well preserved as well. More iron shields, helmets, and different iron artifacts found at the site. Also, these huge ceramic vats, clay vats, that I think would be used for wine making. And these, of course, buried under the ground, you can see in the photo here, to keep them cool. And this fortress and these writings on these tablets, part of the Urartian civilization. This is the precursor civilization to modern Armenian civilization. And here, on this tablet specifically, these are writings of the king of that civilization, King Sarduri II. Truly amazing to see writings inscripted here within this fortress from the king. And as that civilization flourished here into the 6th and 4th centuries BC, still more than 2,000 years ago, truly beautiful examples here of gold jewelry and silver platters and bowls. Here are the first artifacts that I saw in the museum that were glass, which I always find so amazing when glass is this well preserved over this many thousands of years. More small metal figurines, as well as metal bells, which was very interesting the first time I saw that. And you can see here from the map that Armenia, or Greater Armenia at the time, took up a much larger land area than current Armenia. These here were very interesting. I wasn't quite sure what they were before I looked at the sign next to them, and they're actually border stones. So these would be placed in different places to designate borders between different land ownership. Very interesting, a very interesting way to sort of know whose land you're on. Here also, the very first, at least in the collection that I saw, artifacts that were money, coinage, bronze and silver coins from thousands of years ago, as well as the first Roman Latin script that I saw in any artifacts. This large stone here, Latin inscription from Emperor Trajan. Construction work done by the 4th Scythian Legion in the area here. Very interesting to see. And important to remember here that, as shown on these informational panels, the Armenian civilization, in the Greater Armenia, like we saw on the map, here existing alongside like the Greeks and nomadic Arabian civilizations, as well as the Carthaginian and later Roman civilizations. And some of the artifacts from this era of the kingdom, the Greater Armenia kingdom, really, really beautiful. These gold jewelry with beautiful gemstones, incredibly intricate, and a very large collection that they had here in the museum. This collection is truly impressive and very, very overwhelming. Just in this section alone, with the different types of jewelry that they had. And of course, these are the finest examples, the ones that are museum quality. I'm sure that the museum has stored away somewhere the examples that didn't quite make the cut for display. Also, interestingly here, gold leaf, which I saw, and truly amazing, the gold leaf, the fine quality of the gold leaf here. Additionally, marble sculptures. This is a small marble sculpture that's broken, missing the head and some of the limbs, but still you can see the craftsmanship, as well as what I believe was a throne, or at least a very fancy, expensive chair where I'm sure someone's famous butt once sat. And more glasswork here. Now this was truly spectacular glasswork, specifically the vases that had shaped like human heads, like faces. Truly amazing quality. And more tablets here with Latin inscriptions from Roman militaries, as well as a tablet here with ancient Greek inscription on them. So you can see all of these civilizations coexisting more or less at the same time over a period of a few centuries in this area. The next section here is specifically about the Temple of Garni, also a extremely well-preserved and amazing archaeological dig site. The temple itself built here in the 2nd century BC, and this was a royal temple, and you can see some really amazing preserved things. This painting here is actually of the floor of the bathhouse in the temple, and they actually have some of the mosaic pieces of that bathhouse floor preserved here in the museum. Truly spectacular. Next section, very interesting, specifically about the creation of the Armenian alphabet. Now, it's a very interesting alphabet, a very interesting script, one that's used really only here in Armenia. And the information here talking about the creation of the alphabet was created by Mesrop Mashtots, truly very famous Armenian figure in Armenian history. And the creation was almost something to unite the population and find Armenian identity in this period, the early AD period, 387 to 405 AD, when Armenia was divided between two empires, the Persian Empire and the Roman Empire. Christianity in that time also something that became a large part of Armenian culture, and you can see during the early Middle Ages here many representations of the Christian cross. It's seen in a lot of the archaeological artifacts that are found from this time. Here in that Middle Ages, early Middle Ages era, also more glassware and more finely crafted glassware, not just for decoration, but specifically like for science and medicine use, like this dropper. I always think it's very interesting to see those kinds of things, specifically when made out of glass or clay. This, interestingly enough, I didn't know what it was until I read the sign, but this is actually a clay filter for a water system. A really spectacular piece, something that I hadn't really ever seen in any other museum's collections. And moving into the next hall, which displayed pieces from a very large archaeological site, they showed pictures of the archaeologists themselves, which I thought were very cool. Photographs, of course, early or like late 1800s, it looks like to me, by judging by the clothes and the photography technology, but truly spectacular, the work that these gentlemen did to excavate this site. And here is the site. This is a extremely large model that they have of the site, showing off multiple different buildings that were excavated all in the same place, and a key here, a legend that shows what each one of the buildings are, along with paintings in this section showing what the churches and the temples that were found, along with some of the artifacts found within, like these wooden lecterns, this metal chandelier / brazier light fixture. Truly impressive. And we're moving on here now into like the later AD period, 10th century up to 14th century AD. And here the jewelry and decorative pieces get truly impressive, as does the ceramic and glass work that you can see here. And a lot of the excavations that we found in this area are of monasteries. And it's very cool because in Armenia, a lot of these monasteries exist today. You can go visit them, and some of them are even still functioning as monasteries or churches. Some of the artifacts found within this truly amazing, very intricately carved wooden door, as well as some of these like stone tablets, or perhaps this is like a piece of one of the walls or columns from the monastery, but truly intricate stone carvings. And the next section, and this is really the last section that they have here in the museum, this is the period after the long period of rule here by the Ottoman Turks, under which the Armenians eventually gained independence from the Ottoman Turks. Religious artifacts here, information about the re-establishment of Christianity. This thing, which I'm not sure exactly what it is, but it was very impressive, as well as some very impressive manuscripts. And information here specifically about the role that the Russian Empire played in aiding the Armenians to overthrow the Ottoman Empire in this area and gain independence from the Ottomans. And this guy right here, Akhazar Lazarian, who was named by Catherine the Great of Russia to be the first hereditary line of rulers in the new independent Armenian kingdom. And the manuscripts you can see here getting much more advanced. You can tell that these were printed with a printing press. and the armor and weaponry that you see in this era you start to see things like chain mail and very specifically firearms. This pistol right here, which sort of signifies the beginning of the modern era. There are other museums in Armenia that have history beyond the like 18th century, late 18th century, early 19th century, but not here in this museum. And so that was it. That's the end of the tour here of the History Museum of Armenia. So I did record an outro, but unfortunately the video got corrupted. And all I really said was that this was a really great collection, that something that I wanted to see. I knew I wanted to see even before I had come to Yerevan because I knew of its existence. And it did not disappoint. It definitely did not disappoint. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video from here in Yerevan at the National History Museum. And stay tuned, there's plenty more coming from here in Yerevan, Armenia. Stick around, we'll see you in the next one.